Welcome to the TalentGrow Show, where you can get actionable, results-oriented insight and advice on how to take your leadership, communication, and people skills to the next level and become the kind of leader people want to follow. And now, your host and leadership development strategist, Halelly Azulay.
Hey there, welcome back, Talent Growers. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow, and I am looking forward to sharing today's episode with you. A lot of people think that the best leaders and best networkers are extroverts, but according to my guest, the Quiet Professional's Guide, Lori Saitz, it's not true. Lori shares simple strategies and suggestions that anyone can use to improve their networking game, even when you are a quiet person. She gives some great tips like how to make connecting with people at networking events less intimidating, what's common mistakes she sees people making when it comes to thinking about networking and actually networking. She explains how to get the most out of the networking you do so that you don't have to do it as much. She totally helps you know how to network without changing who you are, and shares specific advice for leaders on how to understand and nurture their quiet people. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Listen now, share with others. Thank you for listening. Okay, welcome back, Talent Growers. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist, and I'm on today with my colleague and friend, Lori Saitz. Lori is someone I actually met in a previous life for both of us. We used to work together for an organization, and she was in a manager of corporate communications role. I was at the time just starting out in the training department, which eventually I became the manager of. And since then, each of us has been on a very meandering path that brought us back together through networking, which will be the topic of today's discussion, as you will see, because although Lori says she's inherently good at building relationships, because she is actually someone who defines herself as naturally quiet, and she wasn't always great at meeting and networking with new people. But she started a business. Her first business was called Zen Rabbit Baking Company, and she learned how to use her quietness to her advantage in networking. And now she's a networking strategy coach and speaker, and she helps quiet people who are terrified to walk into a room full of people they don't know feel more comfortable starting conversations with strangers and networking with potential clients and referral sources. And she's in demand by consultants, entrepreneurs, business professionals who want to feel more confident and build relationships that support their business success. And she's been interviewed on a bunch of different media sources and podcasts and speaks regularly at various conferences and events. So I'm really happy to have Lori Saitz on the TalentGrow Show. Lori, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
It is so much fun to have you on. I'm excited. I've been thinking about it for a long time, especially because recently this topic of I am an introvert, I'm a quiet person, I'm shy, I don't know how to network has been coming up so much. So I'm trying to help people as much as possible. And I thought, who better to have on than Lori, because this is what you do for a living. But before we get there, I always like to start with my guests telling us a really brief overview of their professional journey. Where did you start and how did you get to where you are today?
I started out working, as you mentioned, in the marketing and corporate communications departments of several different organizations. And then I also worked on the agency side for a couple of years. And then I spent a couple of years doing on-air radio before I founded Zen Rabbit Baking Company.
And tell us a little more about that too.
So Zen Rabbit Baking Company was my first company that I had. And the purpose of that company was to help business people say thank you to their clients and to people who sent them referrals. And the main tool that we used to do that was a product called the Gratitude Cookie, which was based on a family recipe. And we would put together customized gift packages of gratitude cookies. And that's why it was the baking company part of it came from. So that was a lot of fun until it wasn't anymore.
I was just going to say, well, that's certainly not the end of that journey until today. So was that the reason why you changed again away from the cookies to what you're doing now?
Yes. There's a lot of moving parts when you are manufacturing a food product with a shelf life, a fairly short shelf life at that.
Wow.
and shipping it all over the world. There are just so many logistical issues and operational challenges. And I ran that business for 11 years until I got to the point where I said, okay, I don't want to, this is not where I want to keep going, the direction I want to keep going. And it's time to shut it down and take all of these great lessons that I've learned from running this business and put it into the next big thing. So the company is still called Zen Rabbit. I jokingly call it Zen Rabbit 2.0. And the focus of what I'm doing now is, as you mentioned, helping quiet people feel more comfortable networking. Because I was a really shy child. I had a very hard time talking to people I didn't know. And when I started Zen Rabbit Baking Company, I was business development. I was everything for that business. And so I had to go out and go to networking events and meet people and start conversations and walk into these rooms where I didn't know anyone so that I could find clients and people who would send me referrals, and beyond that, people who would just be in my corner and help me in whatever way they could in terms of building a business. And so I had to learn how to overcome that fear, as well as put the strengths that I believe quiet people have, figure out how to use them to my advantage instead of just becoming somebody I'm not, which is super gregarious and outgoing. And I sometimes come across that way. So people have a hard time now sometimes looking at me and saying, really, you're quiet? But certainly no one is ever going to mistake me for the class clown. I'm not going to be the one dancing on tables with a lampshade on my head. That's never going to be me.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think so. But how to use the strengths that quiet people have to our benefit. And so I figured out how to do that. And now I want to share that with other people who are struggling in the way that I was.
And what are the main ways you're sharing that? Like, how does your business work?
Well, one of the things that is a challenge for quiet people in terms of networking is feeling confident and comfortable walking into that room full of people where you don't know anyone. Because a lot of times it looks like everyone already knows someone. Everyone's already involved in a conversation. And you feel like, great, I'm the only loser who doesn't know someone here. And so you feel awkward and intimidated, and you really just want to turn around and run away. But you're there for a reason. And so how can you feel more confident and more comfortable and in managing those situations? So I help them create a strategy for feeling more comfortable. It can really boil down to being that simple. It's a strategy. If you have a plan, you can walk into that room feeling more comfortable. You thought about it beforehand. It's like nobody likes being caught off guard. I don't think anybody, certainly not the quiet people.
No.
We don't like being caught off guard. So if you feel more prepared and you know you've done some homework before you go to an event, and then you have some tips and ideas in your head for what to do once you're there, you can feel a little bit better about going.
Yeah. Well, good. I want to talk more about maybe you'll share with us some of the nuggets that you teach people in creating the strategy. But real quick, I think that we should pause for a moment, because I also, I write about networking. I talk about networking a lot. I think it's really important to define it, because I don't know if you share this with me, but I find that half the battle sometimes is just helping people see networking differently and redefine it for themselves so that they have a different mindset about it. I'm curious to know, how do you define networking? And then the second, it's a two-part question. How did you come to choose the word quiet? I think this is an interesting choice. Not everyone uses that word. People usually say introverts or something like that. So it seems to me like you made a conscious choice, and I'm curious to know more about that. So how do you define networking, and how do you define quiet, and why?
Fantastic question.
Thank you.
My definition of networking is it's really about starting a conversation. It's the foundation of a relationship, of building a relationship. I think one of the common mistakes that people make is that they think of networking as a sales opportunity or a sales situation. And it's not. It's really just about starting a conversation. I tell people to think about it as you're going into a room to meet a new friend. And sometimes that helps take the pressure off. There's no pressure here. Just having a conversation, just getting to know someone. And that's it. That's networking.
Okay.
Very simple. The second part of your question about the term quiet, yes, I definitely consciously chose to use that term because there's so much baggage, I guess, around the terms introvert and extrovert. And yes, the people that I work with, the clients with whom I work, they may be introverts, but they would define themselves as perhaps as quiet people because, again, there's so much misunderstanding around what constitutes an introvert. And introverts are not necessarily shy or wallflowers, but I think quiet is a little bit more, what's the right word? I just feel like it's a better way of describing the people who are drawn to work with me.
Maybe it's less judging or less of a stigma?
Yeah, I don't know that well, yes, there may be a stigma attached to the term introvert because we live in a society that values extroversion to an extreme.
That's true.
And a lot of people think, okay, well, the best salespeople and the best leaders and the best networkers are extroverts. And that's not necessarily true. In fact, in my opinion, it's not true at all. And a lot of my clients comment they're attracted to working with me because I'm not telling them that in order to be good at networking, you have to be more outgoing and be more extroverted and be more gregarious. The whole direction I start from is you do not have to be different than you are. You're perfect, just as you are. And I'm not going to ask you to be something you're not. So
That's
people
such
are
a relief.
attracted to that. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
What a relief. Cool. So what do you think is the biggest challenge that the group that's attracted to you, the people that you're talking to, the quiet people, what do you think is the biggest challenge that they have? It sounds like that fear, intimidation of starting new conversations. And maybe that's not what it is, but what is the biggest challenge you find they have as, I guess, a unique type of group? And how do you help them overcome it?
For the first thing, it's what we just talked about is the definition of networking, of redefining what networking is and putting it into the context of you're just starting a conversation. You're not pressuring anyone to buy anything from you or listen to you. And so it's feeling confident and comfortable walking into that room full of people. And again, coming back to that strategy, if you have a plan ahead of time, you can relax in the knowledge of, I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the challenge comes from feeling like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to act. And it's very uncomfortable to have to improvise when the whole situation is foreign to me.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that people that you tell them to put on their strategy or that they tend to come up with?
So networking has three parts in my mind. The first part is before you even leave your office, creating a strategy that includes the preparation. What can you do before you even walk out of your office to get yourself properly set? And that in part includes what exactly are you offering? So if you're selling a service, let's say you work for a company that has a service and they've asked you to go to a networking event for your industry, what exactly does your company do? And what service does it offer? And how are you helping solve a problem? What problem are you solving? And then the second part of that is, okay, now for whom are you solving that problem? So you may have clients internally within your company that you're serving. From an HR perspective, clients are the employees of an organization, for example. If you're on the sales or marketing team, then perhaps your clients could be both internal as well as external clients. So for whom are you solving this problem? And then once you get to an event, the second part is what do you do once you're there? How do you start a conversation or break into a small group that's already talking? And how do you gracefully exit a conversation when you inevitably it's going to happen at some point. You're going to get stuck talking to that guy who has nothing but problems to talk about. And how do you get away from him gracefully without just going, okay, this conversation's over, bye-bye. So yeah. And then, oh, and I don't want to forget before you even decide to leave your office, how do you choose which events to go to? That's part of the strategy as well, because you don't want to be wasting your time and most importantly for quiet people, your energy to go to events that aren't going to be fruitful. And then the third part of the whole networking strategy is how do you then follow up on those conversations after an event is over so that it makes having gone worthwhile? Because if you're not going to follow up, don't even go.
Right. What a waste of time, huh? And you get to experience all that anxiety for nothing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But how many of us, people who come back from events and they have stacks of business cards sitting on their desk and they never do anything with them.
Yeah. Sometimes that's me.
That's true. I've admit it's been me in the past too.
Yeah. Well, because it's hard because we're so busy.
Yeah.
And then you get bombarded with whatever things waited for you while you were there. And then you're like, oh, I got to do that. Yes, I'll do that later. This is a higher priority. Let me work on this. And then you keep pushing it away and pushing it away. In fact, let's talk about that. So what's a quick tip you can share to help people avoid that? Because I think that's mostly what happens. Like, it's not that they don't know that they should follow up. It's just that it gets pushed off until it becomes almost passé. Like, hey, remember we met 3 months ago and I haven't done anything.
Right. Exactly.
What should they do?
They should schedule time in their calendar. So if you put in an event, let's say it's an evening function that you're going to, then schedule time, maybe sometime tomorrow or the day after. Certainly don't let it go on for 3 months. Sometime within the next week to put those contacts into your CRM system, as well as to reach out to them and say, hey, it was great meeting you. We'd love to continue the conversation if you would like to, and let's set up a time to connect. But it's a matter of putting that time in your calendar and booking it, just like you put the event into your calendar, put the follow-up time in your calendar at the same time.
Smart. It's part of the package. Like if you're networking, this is part of networking. Like you said, there's 3 parts to it. There's the first part, which is preparation. Then there's the part where you go and you have conversations. And then there's a part where you follow up, and all of those things need to happen. And therefore you should plan for them to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly.
What are some things that you found surprise people or that they are counterintuitive that work really well in terms of the networking suggestions and tips that you've shared for quiet people specifically? What's 1 or 2 of your favorite counterintuitive or surprising tips?
I don't know that it's counterintuitive, but I see it all the time at networking events, and it's like a pet peeve. It drives me insane.
Yeah.
So I am on a mission to get the entire world, people who are going to networking events, your name tag goes on the right side of your body, up near your shoulder, on the right. Because when you go to shake someone's hand, your body turns in that direction. And so they have an easy view of your name. So if you want someone to remember your name and remember you, put your name tag on the right, not on the left, not on your belt buckle, the right side, up near your shoulder.
Perfect. Okay. That's easy and clear to do. And you gave the reason. I like it. Any others?
Yeah. I like the idea of connecting with people. So a lot of times when you sign up to go to a networking event, the event organizers will have a list of people who are committed to attending that you can see. And so if you can see who else is committed to going, you can do a little reconnaissance before you get there and look them up. I mean, it's so easy now with the internet. I'm not saying stalk them. I'm saying type in the person's name.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy enough, especially with LinkedIn, to see who else is going and see what are they about? Maybe look up 3 or 4 or 5 people and see if you have something in common with them or something, some reason for wanting to meet them, so that when you get to the event, it's a little less intimidating, because now, backing up for 1 second, you could potentially even reach out to a few of those people before the event and say, hey, I saw your name on the list. I see you're going to this event. I'm going to. I'd love to talk with you. And that's it. And then once you get there, you have someone specific to look for, something specific to say to them. Perhaps you've looked them up on LinkedIn and you said, hey, I saw you just wrote this article about XYZ. That was really cool. Did you ever consider that? It's a conversation starter. You're looking for ways to connect and find commonalities with them. So if you can do that before you get to an event, it just takes a little bit of the apprehension away.
Yeah, that's really smart. And I think that what it can probably help you feel is that it's less of trying to connect with someone out of the clear blue, totally cold, who was a stranger, right? Because a lot of times, and I think I probably wouldn't categorize myself as a quiet person, but from what I understand, it feels more comfortable to email someone if you're a quiet person than to like walk up to a stranger in a room face to face. But now that you've done that and you've got that initial connection and name recognition and sort of some previous encounter with them, it's warmer, to walk up to them, even if you've personally never met them.
Yes, exactly. And as you were saying that, I was thinking, that sometimes can be really difficult to do if it's a very large networking event. And so if you want to just dip your toe into the networking and work your way into it, start by going to some smaller event where you're not walking into a room of 500 people.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have skills to use at events, and that sometimes you can bypass events as your main networking avenue, right? Like, especially as a quiet person, there's probably lots of other ways that feel less awkward and less difficult to do that can give you the same end result. As you said, you're starting conversations to make friends with people, and lots of more quiet, friendly ways to do it than some kind of a big event. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, internet is a fantastic tool for connecting with people, and you can connect with people all over the world and have conversations and start relationships. And that's fantastic. And we have not, as humans, evolved past the need to connect interpersonally. And so it's still important to be able to reach out and talk with people in person, to shake a hand. You're building a relationship on a completely different level when you can meet someone in person, have a conversation, see their body language, look into their eyes. We're connecting on a completely different level. And as humans, we still need to do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. It is really important. Well, if there's one mistake that you could help prevent, other than that name tag on the right, what's a really common mistake that people can easily fix or can readily fix? What would it be?
At an event?
You call it.
We talked about the follow-up piece, which is huge, that people don't follow up. And so that's one very easily fixable mistake.
Yes.
Another great piece of advice is, before you step into a room in a networking situation, is to think about, what is it you're there to do? What is your goal? What is your intention? Kind of set your intention before you step in. Is it to meet a specific person that you connected with beforehand? Is it to get some information about a particular resource that you're looking to buy or implement? Can you talk to some people about, have you ever used this? What do you think of it? Are you looking for a resource or information? Or is it it could be as simple as, I'm going to meet and talk to 3 new people. And the reason that having an intention or a goal beforehand is so important is because sometimes these events can be 2 or 3 hours long, or if it's a conference, it's 3 days long. So you want to feel like you've accomplished something. And you also don't necessarily have to force yourself to stay the entire time. But if you have this intention set, and once you reach it and you've done it, let's say in the first hour, you can give yourself permission to leave and still feel good about having accomplished something.
I love that. I think that there's this collective sigh of relief from the quiet people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love it. Right. Because you don't need to be there the whole time. If you're thinking about networking strategically and intentionally with purpose, then you can do it better. You can know when you're done, and then you can stop having to do it, since it's not something you do for fun and giggles. You do it for a purpose, for a reason, achieve it, and move on.
Right.
I love it.
Right. There's no need to torture yourself over this.
Yes, it's perfect. So, Lori, before we share one really specific action item people can act on right away, what's something that's really exciting and new on your horizon? What's got your attention these days?
I've been inspired by your literary efforts, and I am writing a book.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah, so
That's exciting.
I don't know what the title is yet. We could go with a working title of The Quiet Person's Guide to Networking, or The Quiet Professional's Guide to Networking.
Very nice. That's exciting. That is exciting. What's your approach to book writing? Just curious. Are you like the little bit everyday kind of person, or are you like the big spurts of focus kind of person?
First, I gather all the ideas in my head, and then I need to sit down and start writing them out. Yeah, it's really hard to get myself to commit to doing it piece by piece. So I think it's going to end up being more, all right, I'm locking myself in a room and nobody talk to me for a week.
Yeah. Yeah, that works for me. That's the way I got to do it. Very cool. Well, I look forward to hearing more about it and, of course, to reading it when it comes out. And maybe we'll have you back on the show when you're ready to launch it so we can share it with the world. What's one specific action that listeners can take that can ratchet up their effectiveness at networking, especially if they're one of the quiet ones?
The thing you can do right away is reach out to someone that you've been meaning to connect with or follow up with, whether it's from a networking event or not. It's reaching out and taking that action, because we talked about how important follow-up is and how easy it is not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So take that specific action and do it. Who is the person that you've been needing to connect with, and do it this week? Reach out to them. One of the reasons why this business is so important to me is because I feel like it's so important that we are connected to our other humans in the world. So few people feel like they're valuable or important. And when we can connect with them, even if it's just momentarily at a networking event, and even if nothing else ever comes of it, that listening to somebody and having that connection with them, I think is good for everyone involved.
Yeah. And actually something that you mentioned to me before we started that I don't think we covered, and we should. You were saying the importance of connection when a lot of the people that are listening are leaders of others. And one of the things that I think you want to tell them or share with them is how they can support that too as a leader. What's something that leaders, especially if the leader is him or herself more outgoing or more extroverted, what's something that they can do to support their quiet team members and help them make those connections?
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. It's really important for quiet people to have a couple of minutes to compose their thoughts. And extroverts or people who are more outgoing sometimes it's easy for them to think on their feet, so they expect everyone else can be able to do it too. And sometimes the quiet people just need to take a moment and reflect. So helping them create some kind of strategy, or if you're going to send them out to networking events, help them create this structure and this strategy that they need to feel more comfortable walking into those situations, and give them a little bit more support and understanding that they operate differently than you do, but they have extremely valuable skills in terms of being able to listen and to nurture relationships. And that's really important to a business's success. And so if you want your business to be successful, then it's good to help the people who have those skills to be able to use them to the best of their ability.
Very good. Well, Lori, thank you for spending time with the Talent Growers community. I appreciate it. And I think that your wisdom is going to help a lot of people. How can people stay in touch, learn more from you and about you?
Certainly. The website is ZenRabbit, ZenRabbit, ZenRabbit.com. Facebook, ZenRabbit, the Facebook.com/ZenRabbit. And you can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, and where else?
That's a great start. Yeah. And Lori is a very, well, you can probably tell, she's a very friendly and open person. and shares interesting things with others. So she's a great one to follow. And of course, that way you'll be able to learn more from her and hear about her book as it builds and develops. So we all look forward to hearing more from you with time. And in the meantime, thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It's been fun. I hope you enjoyed this episode, Talent Growers. Get busy following up on Lori's advice. Go connect with someone today. Her website and social media profiles are all linked on my show notes page at talentgrow.com/podcast/episode65. And while you're there, sign up for my free 10 Mistakes That Leaders Make tool. Plus, that gets you on my short, fun, and actionable weekly newsletter. So I'd love to stay in touch with you that way. That way you'll never miss an episode. You know that we're super proud that the Talent Grow Show podcast has been selected to be part of the C-Suite Radio network of high-quality business podcasts. So check it out over there, c-suiteradio.com. Get lots of useful leadership advice and insights. I'd love for you to take a couple of minutes, go over to iTunes, subscribe to the show, and leave a rating and a review that really helps us get discovered by people who are searching for new content. And since I'm doing this work anyway, I might as well help more people, and you can help me do that. So it isn't for my own gratification. It actually really helps us in the algorithm of the search in iTunes. And check out our latest review. I really love it, and I'm very thankful for it. It's actually from another podcaster, a fellow podcaster I recently met, Ryan Williams, who has his own show called Stories from the Influencer Economy. It's a great podcast. Check it out. And I met him because he was interviewing Dory Clark from episode 63 and here in LA for her book launch. And we connected after that. And he checked out my show and gave me this great review. Listen to what he said. Smart, smart, smart. This is the top leadership and communications podcast. You'll get results from this show. The guests are killer and the content is actionable. 5 stars. I love it. Please go over there, leave me. It can only be like 1 sentence, 2 sentences, whatever. It's really short and fast, and it really helps. Well, that's it for this episode. I'm Halelly Azulay, your leadership development strategist here at TalentGrow, and I thank you for listening today. Appreciate you so much. And until the next time, make today great.
Thanks for listening to the Talent Grow Show, where we help you develop your talent to become the kind of leader that people want to follow. For more information, visit talentgrow.com.